The wake was held at my parents' house, the same place where Nana had spent the last 3 years of her life. 41 people filled the living room and spilled out onto the patio, sharing memories and passing around plates of food no one really wanted to eat. I stayed in the kitchen washing dishes that didn't actually need washing. Keeping my hands busy meant I didn't have to accept another pity-filled hug from a distant cousin who barely remembered my name. Then my sister Vanessa's voice rose above the quiet chatter. "Can everyone come into the living room for a moment? I have an announcement." My stomach tightened. I dried my hands slowly on a dish towel and walked to the doorway. Vanessa stood in front of the fireplace, positioned perfectly so the whole room could see her. At 27, she had mastered the art of commanding attention. Her black dress was clearly designer. Her makeup looked flawless, like she was about to step in front of cameras instead of talking about our grandmother's death. "I know today is difficult for all of us," she began, her voice heavy with carefully practiced emotion. "Nana was such a special woman. She touched so many lives." People nodded. Someone sniffled quietly. "But there's something she told me before she passed that brings me comfort during this painful time." She paused dramatically, pressing a hand to her chest. "Before Nana died, she told me about her trust fund. She said she was leaving it entirely to me." The room fell silent. "She told me she wanted someone responsible to protect her legacy," Vanessa continued, scanning the crowd. "Someone who understands the importance of family and tradition." She took another breath, letting the moment stretch. "The trust fund is worth about $1.2 million, she said. "And Nana wanted me to have all of it." Gasps spread across the room. Aunt Linda grabbed Uncle Rob's arm. Cousin Michelle stared with her mouth open. Mom burst into tears and rushed forward to hug Vanessa. "Oh, sweetheart, that's wonderful," she said. "Eleanor knew you'd honor her memory properly." Dad nodded proudly from his armchair. "That's our girl." I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. Not because of the money, although $1.2 million was staggering, but because of the lie. The calm, confident way Vanessa delivered it like it was absolute truth. "Wait," I said before I could stop myself. My voice sounded strange, distant. "Nana told you that?" Vanessa turned toward me, her expression shifting into something that looked almost sympathetic. "Yes, Emma. I know this might be difficult to hear, but Nana and I had a very special relationship." "Special?" I repeated. "We talked about everything," she said smoothly. Her wishes, her hopes, what she wanted to leave behind. Then her tone cooled slightly. "I'm sorry if you feel left out, but Nana made her choice." Around the room, people nodded again. Of course Vanessa would inherit everything. She was the successful one. The beautiful one. The charming granddaughter everyone noticed. "What exactly did Nana say?" I asked, stepping further into the room. Vanessa's smile tightened. "She said she wanted the trust to go to the granddaughter who would appreciate it most. The one who would use it wisely." "And that's you?" I asked. Vanessa laughed softly. "Emma, I don't want to sound cruel, but let's be realistic. You're a teacher. You make what, $52,000 a year? You rent a small apartment." He crept up my neck. "I make $68,000, I said quietly. "And I own my apartment." Vanessa waved a dismissive hand. "That's not the point. Nana trusted me with her legacy. I hope you can just be happy for me instead of making things awkward." "How much did you say the trust was worth?" I asked. "About $1.2 million, Vanessa snapped. "Why are you questioning this? Are you seriously going to make a scene at Nana's wake?" Mom stepped forward, her face flushed with anger. "Emma, stop it," she said sharply. "Stop being greedy. Your grandmother made her decision." "Greedy?" The word hit me harder than anything else she'd said. The word hit me like a slap. "I'm asking a simple question," I said. "You're embarrassing yourself," Dad said from his chair, his voice sharp. "And you're embarrassing this family. Vanessa is trying to share something meaningful, and you're turning it into an interrogation." I looked around the room. Faces stared back at me. Some sympathetic to Vanessa, some clearly uncomfortable, a few openly judging me. Not a single one was on my side. "Fine," I said quietly. I pulled my phone from my pocket and opened my messages. "What are you doing?" Vanessa asked, her voice suddenly tight. I typed quickly. "Need you here. Now please." The reply came almost instantly. "On my way. 25 minutes." I slipped my phone back into my pocket and looked at Vanessa. Nothing, I said. Just texting a friend. Typical, Vanessa muttered loudly enough for everyone to hear. Can't handle reality, so she hides behind her phone. A ripple of laughter moved through the room. Not friendly laughter. Mean laughter. I turned and walked back into the kitchen, pouring myself a glass of water. My hands were shaking. 25 minutes. I could survive 25 minutes. Behind me, Vanessa had taken control of the room again. I could hear her describing what she planned to do with the money. A condo downtown would be nice, she said. And I've always wanted to take a long trip through Europe. Maybe upgrade my car too. People listened eagerly, offering suggestions and congratulations. No one mentioned Nana anymore. In their minds, the trust fund had already become Vanessa's money. Just like that. I checked my phone again. 21 minutes. Emma. I turned to see Aunt Linda standing in the kitchen doorway. She looked hesitant, almost apologetic. I just wanted to say, she started, then paused. Well, I'm sure Nana had her reasons. And you shouldn't feel bad. $1.2 million is a lot of responsibility. It is, I said calmly. Vanessa will do wonderful things with it. I'm sure. Aunt Linda nodded and patted my arm. And I'm sure Nana left you something too, she added kindly. Maybe some jewelry. Or a keepsake. Maybe, I said. She gave me a small smile and went back to the living room. 17 minutes. Vanessa was now describing her plans for a charity event in Nana's honor. Something elegant, she said proudly. Something that really reflects Nana's legacy. I'll hire an event planner, of course. Spare no expense. Cousin Tom asked if she might help him pay off his student loans. Vanessa laughed lightly. We'll see. 12 minutes. Mom walked into the kitchen, her expression tight with disapproval. Emma, I think you owe your sister an apology. For what? For questioning her. For turning her announcement into something about you. Mom crossed her arms. This is Vanessa's moment. Can't you let her have one day without your jealousy? Jealousy. I repeated. The word tasted bitter. Yes, Mom said firmly. You've always been jealous of Vanessa. Ever since you were children. He's successful. He's social. She has her life together. Her voice rose slightly. I know that's hard for you to see, but maybe you should work on yourself instead of trying to tear her down. I carefully set my water glass on the counter. I'm not tearing anyone down, I said quietly. I asked a question. You questioned her inheritance at your grandmother's wake, Mom snapped. How can you be so selfish? 8 minutes. I loved Nana too, I said softly. I was here with her for 3 years. I was here. We all loved her, Mom said sharply. But Vanessa had a special bond with her. You need to accept that. I didn't reply. There was no point. Mom stormed back into the living room, where she immediately wrapped Vanessa in another proud hug. 5 minutes. I walked to the front window and looked out at the quiet street. A black Mercedes pulled up to the curb. 2 minutes early. Richard Chin stepped out of the car holding his leather portfolio. At 63, he had been Nana's financial advisor for 27 years. For the last 5 years, he'd also been managing the investment account I had built on my own. I opened the front door before he even had a chance to knock. Emma, he said gently. His eyes were kind but serious. I came as quickly as I could. Thank you, I whispered. She's in the living room telling everyone about the trust fund. Richard's jaw tightened slightly. I see. We walked into the living room together. The moment people noticed us, the conversation stopped. Vanessa's confident smile vanished, her face turning pale in seconds. Who is this? She asked sharply. This is Richard Chin, I said clearly. Nana's financial advisor. Dad stood up quickly, suspicion in his voice. What's going on? Richard calmly set his leather portfolio on the coffee table and opened it with practiced efficiency. I apologize for interrupting, he said. However, I understand there may be some confusion regarding Mrs. Eleanor Chen's trust fund. There's no confusion, Vanessa said quickly. Nana left it to me. She told me herself. Richard looked at her politely. I'm afraid that's not correct, Miss Vanessa. He pulled out several documents and placed them neatly on the table. Mrs. Chin created her trust fund in 1998. I have the complete records here, including every amendment and distribution. The room had gone completely silent. Somewhere I could hear the faint ticking of someone's watch. The trust fund currently holds approximately $1.47 million in assets, Richard continued. Municipal bonds, index funds, and a diversified stock portfolio. Mrs. Chin was very careful with her investments. $1.47 million? Vanessa's voice cracked. I said $1.2 million. The difference is recent growth from the past quarter, Richard explained calmly. Mrs. Chin was an excellent investor. He lifted one document with an official seal. According to the trust documents, last updated 8 months ago, the primary beneficiary is Emma Louise Chin. Someone gasped. I think it was Cousin Michelle again. Dad's face turned completely white as if all the blood had drained from it. That's impossible, Vanessa whispered. She told me. Mrs. Chin never discussed trust fund details with you, Richard said gently but firmly. I keep notes from every meeting regarding beneficiary discussions. Your name was never mentioned in that context. Mom finally spoke up, her voice shaking. There must be a mistake. Eleanor wouldn't. Emma barely even visited. Richard looked at her directly. Emma visited Mrs. Chin every Tuesday and Thursday for 3 years. He pulled out another document. Mrs. Chin kept detailed records. Emma managed her medications, coordinated her medical appointments, handled grocery shopping, and spent time with her. He glanced toward my parents. She also paid for the home modifications that allowed Mrs. Chin to remain in this house instead of moving into assisted living. He flipped the page. Grab bars in the bathroom. Wheelchair ramp. Bathroom renovations. Total cost $34,000. The silence in the room became overwhelming. Richard continued, now reading from Nana's own handwritten notes. Emma listens to my stories. She learned to cook my favorite soup. She watches old movies with me and never checks her phone. She treats me like a person, not a burden. My eyes blurred with tears. Vanessa visited 3 times in 3 years, Richard added flatly. Each visit lasted less than 30 minutes. Mrs. Chin noted that most of that time was spent on her phone or discussing her own problems. Vanessa let out a broken sound. Richard pulled out the financial summary. The trust fund distribution is as follows. Emma receives the full $1.47 million investment portfolio. Vanessa receives $15,000 in cash, which Mrs. Chin noted was more than generous considering the level of involvement. $15,000? Vanessa screamed. That's insulting. Mrs. Chin also left a written letter in case of disputes, Richard said. He unfolded the paper and cleared his throat. To my family. I am of sound mind and clear judgment. Emma earned every dollar of her inheritance through love, time, and sacrifice. She asked for nothing and gave everything. Vanessa earned her portion through existing. I hope she learns that family is not a performance and love cannot be replaced with social media posts or empty promises. The room exploded. Mom burst into tears, insisting something had gone wrong. Dad started shouting about lawyers. Vanessa screamed that it was unfair, accusing me of manipulating an elderly woman. Richard calmly gathered his papers. The trust is irrevocable and legally sound, he said. Any legal challenge would be unsuccessful and extremely expensive. He looked directly at my parents. I should also mention that Mrs. Chin prepared for that possibility. She created a separate account to cover Emma's legal expenses if the family attempted to contest the trust. Dad slowly sank back into his chair. Mrs. Chin deposited $500 per month for 5 years, Richard continued. The legal defense fund currently contains $31,000. No one said a word. More than enough to defend the trust if necessary. He turned to me. Emma, I'll call you tomorrow to begin the transfer process. There's no rush. Thank you, Richard, I said quietly. He nodded, then looked around the room with visible disappointment. Mrs. Chin was one of the wisest people I've ever known, he said. She always knew the difference between people who show up and people who simply show off. Then he walked out, leaving the room in chaos. Vanessa spun toward me, her face twisted with anger. You manipulated her. You wormed your way into her life. I loved her, I said. My voice was calm now. I visited her every week for 3 years because I wanted to, not because I expected anything. I made her soup because she liked it, not because I was building a case for inheritance. I looked straight at her. I was there, Vanessa. Then I asked quietly, "Where were you?" "I was busy," she snapped. "I have a career. I have a life too," Vanessa snapped. "So do I," I cut in. "I teach 160 students. I run 2 clubs. I grade papers until midnight most nights. But I still made time because that's what you do for people you love." Mom stepped forward, trying to calm things down. "Emma, honey, maybe we should talk about this as a family. You don't really need all that money. You could share it with your sister." "Why?" I asked. The word came out sharper than I meant. "So she can buy a condo and take vacations? So the two of you can stop feeling guilty about which daughter you actually supported all these years." Dad's face turned red. "That's not fair. You forgot my 30th birthday," I said. "You didn't come to my master's graduation because Vanessa had a work event. And you've introduced me as our other daughter more times than I can count." I looked at all of them. But Nana never forgot. Not once. She remembered everything. Vanessa crossed her arms. "This is about money. You're just greedy." "No," I said quietly. "This is about being seen. For 3 years I was invisible to all of you. But not to Nana. She saw me. She valued me. And yes, she left me her money. Not as payment but as validation. Proof that love and presence matter more than empty promises." I picked up my purse from the table. "The trust fund is mine. Legally, ethically, and morally. Nana made her choice clearly. And I'm going to honor it." "Emma, wait," Mom started. "No," I said. "For 32 years I waited. I waited for you to notice me. To value me. To treat me like I mattered as much as Vanessa." I shook my head. "I'm done waiting." I walked toward the door. The room fell silent as people stepped aside. Some looked sympathetic. Most just looked shocked. "You'll regret this," Vanessa shouted. "You're going to end up alone." I paused at the doorway and looked back at her. Suddenly she didn't look powerful. She looked small. Desperate. "I'd rather be alone than pretend to be less than I am just so you can feel superior," I said. "Nana taught me that." Then I walked out. My phone started buzzing before I even reached my car. Texts. Missed calls. Voicemails. Desperate attempts to turn 3 years of neglect into a misunderstanding. I blocked them all. 6 weeks later, I sat in Richard's office signing the final transfer papers. "Your grandmother would be proud," he said as he slid the documents across the desk. "She once told me you were the strongest person in your family. You just didn't know it yet." "I'm starting to," I admitted. He smiled. "She also left this for you." He handed me an old envelope, slightly yellow with age. Inside was a photograph of Nana and me from 10 years ago. We were at the lake house she had later sold to pay for her care. We were both laughing, our faces bright with joy. On the back, in her careful handwriting, were a few words. "Emma, remember that worth is not given by others. It is recognized by those wise enough to see it. You're always worthy. You're always enough. Build a beautiful life. Love, Nana." I folded the photo gently and slipped it into my wallet. "What will you do with the money?" Richard asked. I thought for a moment. "Pay off my apartment. Start a scholarship for first-generation college students. Maybe travel." I smiled slightly. "And definitely therapy." He laughed. "Sounds perfect." I stood to leave, then paused. "Richard, thank you for coming that day. For standing up for Nana's wishes." "It was my honor," he said. "Your grandmother was extraordinary. And so are you." I stepped outside into the bright afternoon sun. For the first time in years I felt lighter. My phone buzzed again. Vanessa's name flashed on the screen. I deleted the message without reading it and kept walking.